What is going on, friends? King of Chaos Logan Black here, and you're watching another episode of Dude. Have you heard this? It's the roundtable show about music where a whole bunch of friends will sit around and chat about some of our favorite under-the-radar albums. With me, as always, Johnny Torres and Scotty Cerriti. Go ahead and say hello, guys.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What up, y'all?
And joining us for a repeat time, I suppose you can call her a repeat offender, we've got Big Juicy. How you doing, homegirl?
Hello.
I suppose we should call this episode the And We're Back edition. We tried recording this one on Friday, normal time. We ran into a bit of technical difficulties. It happens. The internet is weird and run by lizard people, but that's cool. We're actually here right now. We've defeated the lizard people, and we're about to get started. Let's hop right on into it. I am going to start out by putting it on the guest. Juicy, what album did you pick and why?
So I picked Commit This to Memory by Motion City Soundtrack. I picked it because I found that band at a very formative period in my life. I found it when I was in like 7th, 8th grade. And, you know, everyone's in their emotions, everyone's in their feels at that age. And I don't know, I just really connected with the album, more so with the band.
Yeah, this is not our first foray into Motion City Soundtrack.
Yeah, I'm a little sad.
No, there's nothing to be sad about that. I mean, it speaks volumes on the band itself in terms of, the fact that people are that into what they're doing. And, they are a band that, did kind of fall under the radar. I mean, we know of them, but all of us have been to a Warped Tour before, you know what I mean? So it kind of works out that way. Yeah, I'm going to go with Scotty first in terms of what his thoughts on this one was. Go for it, dude.
This is one of my favorite pop punk records of all time, actually. Front to back bangers, all the way from the beginning to the end. Attractive Today still rips just like it did the first time I heard it. Everything Is All Right is super good. When You're Around is my favorite Motion City Soundtrack song. This is like as close to a perfect pop punk album as you can get from me.
So that's a fair assessment. I'll be real with you, and I know I mentioned this when we had the other Motion City Soundtrack album on, is that Everything Is All Right, when I had heard that song on like the plethora of Warped Tour compilations that it was out on, I was just like, this is what's the Frank Costanza quote about what he said in Korea? The woman he was dating in Korea, her father said, "This guy is not my kind of guy." This so that song was immediately at the time was just like, yeah, this is not for me. So I shuddered a bit when I saw that was going to be on the track listing. I was like, all right, but you know what? There's no time like the present in my ripe old age right now to be taking all of this in again, giving it another shot and seeing what's up. And I definitely will give you, this is like a fun pop punk record. The other one that we listened to me, sounded a lot more mature. If there's a way to say that. This sounds like they were trying to make a pop punk record, whereas I think the other one that we listened to sounded like a band that had made some pop punk records, finally decided to just write some like really great music. Johnny, I want to put this one on you. Go ahead and let us know what you thought.
A lot of love for Motion City Soundtrack. Yeah, this was, in terms of singles, this was the first I ever heard from Motion City Soundtrack. Then Panic Stations was like a continued progression of what you were referring to there, Logan, with because this was them like expanding into like that fourth dimension of pop punk, because you got a handful of bands that do like the pop punk 101, and then you got like your AFIs and bands that are like take pop punk but expand it to a fourth dimension. And Motion City Soundtrack kind of falls into that camp where they're willing to get into like the electronica side of pop punk at the same time. So this was like their first real foray into that. They continued into that with the more mature My Dinosaur Life. And then Panic Stations, like they fully even took a dive into like the synth, and it might be on me to bring that record onto this show at some point and cap off the holy trifecta of Motion City soundtrack dives. But yeah, a lot of love for this record. Let's Get Fucked Up and Die is still like an anthem that everybody who's listened to pop punk for even a minute probably knows. You stumbled across it somewhere. Yeah,
It hits so hard.
That one was on my list of favorite tracks, along with Hangman. For some reason, stood out to me. I wrote down in my notes here that this is what I expected the Jimmy Eat World record to sound like. Which I know that I just spoiled it for later on, but we'll get to that next. No worries. Like this is what I expected that to kind of sound like. Whereas I guess it was, that definitely very anthemic, pop punky sound, filled with lots of kids in neon shirts, sweating through them, trying to elbow their way to the Monster Energy water tank. But yeah, no,
that could be more accurate.
Listen, I've been to plenty of those Warped Tours. Motion City Soundtrack played all of them. I think I might have caught them only once. Right, like I think I might have caught them like only once, just in passing, because I was way more on the track of like, if there's not like, double bass, I am not giving a fuck about any of this. Classics, but they didn't have too many. I digress. So this one was certainly an interesting one that I never, ever, ever would have listened to on my own. But we have some ratings, as we do every week. I'm going to start with you, Juicy. What did you rate this one?
Well, so my rating is a little bit, I took a personal attack on myself and the age that I found this band and was listening to this music. So I 10 out of 10 recommend to all the emo kids who think they're the only ones going through some shit.
That's a very, very fair rating right there. Scotty, what about you, man?
10 out of 10 ice cold water bottles in a cloth backpack at Warped Tour.
Oh man, that is some memories. A peanut butter sandwich and then you don't touch either of them because they've got hot dogs and burgers and wings, and of course you want to be eating all those. Right, you want to eat all those things and then get right next to somebody who went wearing deodorant. Brilliant.
Yep.
I gave this one 7 out of 10 PETA tents next to Stay Brutal merch tents. I think I also still have my Stay Brutal headband.
Good Lord.
I should be wearing to wrestling training to keep my hair back. Johnny, what did you rate this one?
8 out of 10 freakazoid wigged people with an age variance of 15 years all screaming, "Let's get fucked up and die."
Oh, man. So many references in there. I think Johnny Torres already wins reference bingo today. Love it. So with that said, do we have any other questions, comments, concerns, or feelings about Commit This to Memory? Cool. I'm going to throw this one because I already spoiled it. We're going to go to Johnny Torres's pick. Lay it on us, buddy.
The magic that is Futures by Jimmy Eat World. It was only a matter of time before Jimmy Eat World got their flowers on this show. And let's, for a minute, from a higher level, talk about the wild pace that Jimmy Eat World has kept since 1996, where for every 3 years since 1996, we have gotten a new Jimmy Eat World record, nonstop, without a break. That is to me, right away, some next level shit. And they ruled the 2000s in terms of when all of their records throughout this whole decade are, to me, some of the best that happened throughout the whole genre. And Futures is the best of that, in that it completely changes what Bleed American was before and adds another they take another new dimension, sort of in the way that leaning towards the Motion City Soundtrack AFI type fourth dimension, if you will. But I think the first 8 tracks of this you put next to anything and it stands. Futures to me is one of the greatest opening tracks on any pop punk record that's ever happened. the trio of Pain, Drugs or Me, and Polaris, even that you put next to any 3 tracks, and holy shit. Yeah, can't say enough about like you can take a track by track dive, and there's a merit to every single track on this. I love this record.
This was, again, as it has been, and I say this every week at this point, but it is the thread that goes through everything of bands that I avoided like the plague because I was such an awful fucking music hipster for so fucking long. Simply because this was a band, they did have like popularity at the time. They were on MTV, and like everyone liked them. Listen, the fact that everyone liked them was a disqualifying factor for me. It took me into my college years to listen to Rancid. Like, that's how much of a shithead I was.
What?
Yes, right. Here's the thing. I walked into high school.
Wow.
If you were part of, like, the kids I did not like, and you had a band shirt on, I didn't like that band. I knew I wouldn't like them. It stopped me from listening to Rancid. Stopped me from listening to the Buzzcocks. Like, all this stuff, right? No, dude, you had to realize it was bad. I bought my first Rancid record at the Big Virgin Megastore in Times Square. That's how old I am. Fuck you, everyone watching.
I bought a Korn CD from there. Hell yeah.
Linkin Park.
Oh my god, yeah. All these like northeastern folks are all like, yeah, we have memories of the Virgin Megastore. Or if you've got time at the end, I'll tell my favorite Virgin Megastore story because it's a funny one. But I'm going to throw this to Scotty. What did you think about this Jimmy Eat World record?
I've always loved this record. As Johnny said, like, first 8 tracks, that 3 spot with Pain and Drugs or Me, just there's the grouping of songs, the track listing, everything about this record is Jimmy Eat World at their best. And that's saying something because I thought that was going to be Bleed American. I thought that was going to be the moment because there was a little bit of a tonal shift in Bleed American, and then Futures came out and fucking ruined my whole life.
I think the thing that surprised me the most listening to this is that everything that I've ever known about Jimmy Eat World has only either been the people I know who were like big fans and the singles. And I don't think that there's anything on this record that sounds like Pain, which was the single from this record. I don't think that anything on this record sounds like any of the other stuff that I heard, prior in terms of like singles and stuff. This is very different. Like, this doesn't sound like, because these guys always got, I guess, pelted with the thought of like, this is the emo band. It was Weezer, and now it is Jimmy Eat World. And I don't fucking get that from this. I get like a really good band full of like insane musicianship. Like, these guys can fucking play their instruments. And it doesn't seem like that to me. I just could maybe be missing the boat because, it was not made for me at that time. But this is, again, very surprised I like this. Lots of grunge sounds. Like, I got some real grungy sounds on this. And, granted, that emo, scene did kind of come, grunge and emo kind of all that same thing, the Sunny Day Real Estate, same areas, all that nonsense. But, like, boom, all that coming out, I was like, all right, this doesn't sound like what I expected to be like whiny, lame-ass emo music. This sounds like a band that, took all their influences, built them up, and then created something completely of its own. Really dug that about it. Juicy, what did you think about this one?
So honestly, I'm going to throw myself under the bus. I never really listened to a Jimmy Eat World album from top to bottom. I will be that person that admits the only song I knew from Jimmy Eat World until this point was The Middle, of course. Like, the song you hear in every movie, like, whatever. I'm that generic person. It's fine. But listening to the album top to bottom, I agree with you guys. I loved everything about it. I picked 2 tracks that I thought like I liked more than others, but I don't think there was a single song on there that I didn't like. But the 2 that really did it for me were Drugs or Me, again, like which everyone had said, and Nothing Wrong. Those 2 for me were like stood out in my eyes. But overall, I definitely give this album a listen again.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw myself further under the bus than you, Juicy. I think The Middle sucks. I don't like it still. It's not for me.
Oh, man.
Right. See, again, if I had heard, well, no, probably not, because I was such a shithead. but like if to me that's like what I expected this record to sound like. Kind of like cheesy, like emo songs written for like, girls going through their first breakup. And this was not that. This was fucking dope. The choruses. I wrote down big with many eyes choruses. Fuck, man. Like, again, when you find these bands that just really understand how to like throw their hooks in and get these big choruses, it makes sense that this band had the following that it did. And I'm glad that I was able to listen to this when I did, because I genuinely feel like I wouldn't have appreciated it as a youngin'. But I can appreciate it now, which is lots of fun. But we gave this one some ratings. So I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Juicy. What did you rate this one?
So I rated this a 10 out of 10 for all the sad emo kids who need to cry.
And they could do plenty of that throughout this record. Scotty, what about you?
9 out of 10 songs I played on repeat in Tony Hawk's Underground.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Man, that, you know what? Shit, now that I'm thinking about it, I played Underground probably from like April through July, like nonstop. That is, I think, where I've heard some. Okay, that makes sense. There was some familiarity.
Pain specifically.
Yeah, like
Oh, yeah.
that game brought so much in terms of. I think we need to do a Tony Hawk episode.
You should.
Where are we at? I gave this one 8 out of 10. Bands that should never abbreviate their name. Hoping that you guys think that.
Oh
Yes.
my god, I didn't even think about that.
Yes. I used to see it often. I'd be like, yo, who the fuck is... Oh, that makes sense. Never abbreviate their name. Ever. Not a smart move, Mr. Jimmy Eat World. And Johnny, what did you rate this one?
9 out of 10 acoustic covers of Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Is that a track that I missed?
I'll send that to you.
I need to check that the fuck out. Dopeness. All right. Before we move on, any other questions, comments, concerns, or feelings about Jimmy World's futures? Okay. Moving on. This one I'm hella excited for. Scotty, lay it on us, man. What did you pick?
My pick this week was the first album, Is This Real, by Portland, Oregon punk band The Wipers. The band essentially responsible for every band to come out of Seattle after like 1983. Super good, super tight punk rock record. Greg Sage is a tremendous songwriter. Alien Boy is such a killer track. D7 is super good. And no band that has ever covered any of these songs, I don't care if it's Nirvana, I don't care if it's anybody, no band has ever done these songs the justice they deserved. This is like such a good piece of like early punk that it stands on its own.
So I've got a lot to talk about this record, but it's all my music nerdiness. And it's all based around this documentary done on the Seattle grunge scene. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the movie Hype. Anyone?
No.
Oh, I'm interested.
Okay.
I know, I'm like...
This movie, the documentary, I must have watched it 1,000 times from age like 9 or 10 to age 17. I could probably quote the movie so many ways through, and I'm going to as we go through this review. So a lot of my references are going to be to that documentary, just because that's the first time that I heard the Wipers, because they were brought up as the band that like influenced grunge along with Green River. They said the Wipers, the U-Men, Green River were the three that they really put out there, and Return of the Rat is on the soundtrack for Hype, which I owned at some point. I no longer own it. I don't know where it went. But I want to throw it to you guys. Johnny, what did you think of this Wipers record?
Unbelievable. You can sense like a primordial soup of what would later become like grunge, alt rock, the later state, like, well, not the later at this point, like the middle stage of punk rock, the 90s stage, what it would eventually evolve into. There's so much here that just feels like tilling of the soil and seed planting, and it bounces between this punky and this like the Cure-esque alt rock sound that blows my mind. Like I went through the 3 tracks that are south of 2 minutes, Mystery, Let's Go Away, and Tragedy, and just like played them just next to each other, just seeing like, and just the difference in like Mystery by itself seems to have like could have spawned all of British rock and roll, like British alt rock by itself. It seems like there was like a surfer sound to it. And then you get to the later portions of the album and you get to like Alien Boy, and just they were laying grooves on us this whole record, and then they just like completely like, all right, well now we're really gonna show you what a groove is. And like the tag team of Alien Boy and D7, just like, this is how it's done. This is how you lay a fucking foundation. I was absolutely blown away, and like I'd seen this band's name get like dropped in terms of just like influence, but just like in amidst the other like pool of names. So like it never really stood out. It was always just a band amidst a list of bullet points of bands you should check out. So it was really good that I finally got to magnify that and zoom in on this, because holy shit, like this just feels like a really, really important record for decades to come.
I wrote down that this sounds like the American Buzzcocks to me. It has some very, it's punk rock, it's aggressive, but it's also not like, where like if you listen to like, again, another like the U-Men from that time, the U-Men were just like chunking around with lots and lots of distortion and yelling at you. Whereas this is more accessible, I feel. I feel like there's definitely more of the grunge influence to this than anything. Juicy, what did you think of this Wipers record?
So whenever, like the last time we were on here, I try to just listen to whatever the album is, and then I kind of look up some stuff later. And so I listened to the album top to bottom, and then I kind of like did some searching on the internet, and I saw that this was from 1980, and I was like, what the hell? I was like, how is this from fucking 1980? Like, the vibe of everything just felt like so current. So the points where you guys were saying it was very foundational for all these other punk bands or like all these other genres of music, it definitely makes sense. I have to agree with you guys. I thought Alien Boy was a fucking killer song. And another song that I wrote down that I really enjoyed was Up Front, because I'm just a sucker for a really good bass line. And right off the rip, the beginning of the song, I was like, how could you not be invested in a song that starts like that? That's just me personally.
Yeah, Wait a Minute was the one that stuck out for me, which is the last track on the album. Specifically because I think it took like a really like quick left turn from everything else. And like, yeah, we got like all these other bands, but like this one was like, oh, this is like this could be a replacement song. I really, really dug that one. Everything on this was a lot of fun. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough. Anyone who's watching along with this, if you could find the documentary Hype anywhere, it really is like, to me, that's possibly one of my favorite documentaries of all time. Such a deep dig on everything related to grunge and that scene and the Northwest and all that. Yeah, this is. I was so stoked when Scotty picked this one simply because of that documentary. But we gave this one some ratings. Johnny, what did you rate this one?
Oh man, 8 out of 10 cauldrons of musical primordial soup.
Juicy, what about you?
Rated it 10 out of 10 for all the punks wearing flight jackets and get mad when you call Doc Martens combat boots. They are work boots. I've been explicitly told they are work boots, not combat boots. Even though I own like 8 pairs.
Right, listen, they could be anything that you want. There's that whole meme going around, you guy trying to convince punks that Doc Marten boots aren't winter boots. I wore them in the snow the other day. They're fucking winter boots if I want them to be. I gave this one 8 out of 10 times. I quoted the kid on the cover of the Hype movie poster saying, "Well, I like them first." It's funny in context. It's not that funny here. The whole poem is him just complaining about how, like, everybody likes these bands now, and it's like, oh, everyone's posers and all this. You know what really upsets me? You know what really pissed me off? Well, I liked them first. A kid, if you look up hype documentary, it's this picture of this kid. He's got weird colored hair. It's all over the place, and he has earplugs up his nose. I want to know what that dude is doing right now. Scotty, what did you rate your pick?
10 out of 10 Dinosaur Jr. covers I never understood until a few years ago.
I'm going to have to check those out. Dopeness. All right, guys. Any other questions, comments, concerns, or feelings about Is This Real from the Wipers? All right, last but not least, we're going to go with my pick this week. So, I talk often about being a douchey musical hipster throughout most of my youth. In high school, I was at my most insufferable. I don't want to say that I went through a goth phase because that really has not left. I wear, for the most part, nothing but black as it stands. More of a fashion choice now. But I still genuinely love all the music that I used to listen to. The early Marilyn Manson stuff I could listen to nonstop. Cradle of Filth I still think is a dope fucking band. The Damned, all that weird, like, gothy music. But then I found Jack Off Jill in high school. Jack Off Jill was a band out of the same scene as, Marilyn Manson and those, like, South Florida goth scene bands. I feel like they were a band that never really got their due because you don't really hear them talked about in the same vein as, a lot of that other stuff. Of that time, there was, all these bands where, like, everybody, was super pale and wore makeup and was doing, like, oh, we're going to go on stage and, like, stab little dollies because that's, going to scare, middle America. But I feel like these guys had the musical chops to kind of, balance out all that, image. This would be their second full-length release, although they put out a buttload of other stuff elsewhere. But this album, Clear Hearts, Grey Flowers, is where I feel like they captured their sound in terms of being able to write songs. Like, a lot of the other stuff really was able to, capture the emotion of just, like, angry high school girl who wears nothing but black. But this one, they're like, we're going to fucking really just write out our songs. And even though we're going to keep that aggression and emotion all with everything, we're just really going to focus on writing some jammin' tunes. So I think this happens to be their best release ever. I think everything is great down to, from production to guitar playing to, everything that comes together. But I would love to hear what you guys felt about this one as we descend into Logan's inner goth chick. I'm going to start with you, Scotty.
I, honest to God, didn't know this album existed until like 4 months ago when I was listening to a Spotify playlist randomly and Fear of Dying came on. And I was kind of hooked ever since. I love this album. It's a weird one. Like, it's definitely, listen, you're gonna hear some things, but take your time with it. I promise it pays off. I always really like the vocals. I always really like the guitar playing. As you said, the production is super clean on this, and it being only their second album really honestly surprised me because this sounds like a band that's been doing it at this point for like 10 years or so, and they just hit one, for lack of a better explanation. I really like this record.
Yeah, I mean, you actually did hit it right on the nose. This band had been around for quite some time prior to this. I don't think it was 10 years, but they had formed in like the same time period as like Marilyn Manson was getting formed, so like early 90s, and they put out a bunch of like, I don't know, 6-7 track EPs or like album. They might have called them albums at the time, but they only have on Spotify 2 records: Sexless Demons and Scars, and this one. But Human Teenage Mediocrity is the other one. That's a compilation of all the old stuff. But yeah, these guys have been around for a long time. And I think they hit their groove with this one. Juicy, what did you think of this record?
So right off the rip, when I looked up the album and I saw the cover, I was like, this artwork's dope as fuck. Like, so sick. And like, even before that, kind of just sets the tone in and of itself before you even start listening to anything, in my opinion. Definitely, I can't say, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that, like, this is like my go-to type of music, but it definitely, like, I actually was surprised when I like took to it, and I was like, oh, this shit's actually kind of cool. There were a couple of moments and couple tracks that just kind of got me all pumped up, and I wanted to go put on some like shit kickers and fuck some shit up real quick. It got me hyped. Tracks that stuck out to me definitely were Fear of Dying, which you mentioned, Scotty, and Author Unknown. I really enjoyed those two tracks, and although it was cool, Witch Hunt was just a little too creepy for me, but I think it was because I was listening to it at night and I was the only one home alone. So just, hearing that and being in my apartment by myself, I was like, all right, I'm a little freaked out, but this is still dope at the same time.
Yeah, I think the appeal of this band does get lost when, like, you're not, like, if you lack the interest in that, goth scene of the 90s, which is fair because it was very, very niche and not very many people were about that. But if, like,
Right.
you don't have the interest in going to see Manson prior to the one that the album that fucking broke him, Beautiful People on it. Why am I blanking on it? Concussion.
Antichrist Superstar.
That's the one. Just don't get concussed, people. But like, if you have no interest in seeing like Club Manson, this is probably not going to be a that you go. Understandable, but I still think it's just there's a lot of versatility on this. They can go fast, they can go aggressive, and then you've got stuff like Vivica, which is just kind of like very weird and sets more of a mood than it does something to sing along with. Johnny, lay it on us, man. What did you think of this record?
So it's interesting that like I was aware of this band only because like I had read Marilyn Manson's autobiography, Long Hard Road Out of Hell. So like I knew of them, and I knew that like they were a regular opener for Marilyn Manson and stuff like that. So like I had a bit of an idea that like I was gonna be getting something in like the Manson Rob Zombie shock rock realm. So like I kind of came in like prepared for that, and like wasn't wrong. Like it's definitely like that goth industrial meets like early 2000s new metal. Like from this clearly spawned a million other bands. Like I imagine Chevelle was really feeling this right before Wonder What's Next came out. I bet Spineshank was listening to this before they wrote New Disease, so on and so forth.
Don't ruin this band for me, Johnny.
Well, sorry. Truth is what it is.
Damn.
Spineshank coming soon. Anyways, yeah. Between Strawberry Gaseous and Cinnamon Spider were probably my two favorites on here. But also the love song cover at the end is just what a treat. Damn.
Yeah. So Strawberry Gaseous was the song that every girl I went to high school with would write the lyrics in their notebooks. Like that was the anthem. Yeah, listen, that was the time where
that was the time, I guess.
It was the time. Yeah. See, this is the difference between you and I, Juicy. Your high school time, people were spent listening to Motion City Soundtrack and writing out those lyrics, and then everybody in my time was wearing that Cradle of Filth shirt with like the lady with her boobies out on it and getting sent home, and then writing Strawberry Gaseous in their fucking notebooks. Yeah, man. I like I said, I go back to this record all the time. I absolutely love everything that this band ever put out. This album just, I think, has a special, fucking place in my heart. Fun fact, because you mentioned the Long Hard Road Out of Hell, the song Nazi Halo is written about Twiggy Ramirez, who the singer Jessica dated for a short period of time, and doesn't seem to have very high thoughts of him, as per the lyrics in that one. With that said, we've got some ratings for this one. I'm going to start with you, Juicy.
All right, so my rating, 8 out of 10, recommend for goth chicks putting on their finest ripped fishnets and darkest shades of black lipstick.
Yeah, that's a scene. You hit it right on the fucking nose. Johnny, what do you rate this one?
7 out of 10 times musicians showered audiences with candy.
Or blood. They were very famous for the fake blood scene.
Or blood-soaked candy, I guess.
I'm for it all, man. I'll eat anything. Scotty.
8 out of 10 people who were absolutely gifted a copy of Oingo Boingo's Dead Man's Party.
And I gave this one 8.5 out of 10 visits to vampirefreaks.com. You best believe I got to pull out the pictures from me in high school, and you're going to be like, yup, this motherfucker lived on Vampire
I
Freaks.
really need to see this now because I'm really trying to picture it, and I need the visual.
It's definitely, like, listen, I had my periods where it was like, you know, I definitely went between fucking Marilyn Manson fan and fucking filthy punk. Like, there was definitely somewhere in the middle. And then by the end of it, it was just like gym shorts because my legs were getting too big to fit into anything else. With that said, any other questions, comments, concerns, or feelings about Jack Off Jill? Before we get out of here and hype that stuff, I'm going to give the quick story of my favorite Virgin Megastore story. So, as I've mentioned many times, I worked literally every job ever in existence. And at one point, I was a foot messenger, straight out of high school, was running around delivering, mail to different businesses. And I was walking through Times Square with my mail. And if you guys remember the guy from Sister Sister, the guy who would, climb up and they'd kick him out all the time, his name was Marquise. And he was putting out a record, apparently. And it was being released at the Virgin Megastore to some big hype. And I guess, if you're working, you've got something like that, you got to film something cool. So what they decided to film was Marquise getting out of all these girls that they hired, just completely chasing after him and just mobbing him as he gets out. The cameras are on him, and I'm walking past all this. And once I recognize who it is, I'm walking by, and I don't know what they did with this footage, and they had to have edited me out. But you just hear me screaming, "Go home, Roger!"
Yes!
And the girls all got very mad at me. And they might have had to reshoot that. But yes, that was a very fond memory of.
I'm so proud of you.
It was the only thing that I could think to say.
I would have
And
done
this
the
is-
same exact thing, though. That's the thing. That's why I'm like, yes.
Listen, that was his thing. I don't know why people weren't saying "Go home, Roger." I think he was trying to shed that. But anyway, guys, that's going to conclude this week's episode of Dude, Have You Heard This? We are going to take a break through 2020. It's only a few Fridays away. But we will be back in 2021, kicking ass, taking names, chatting up more. Let's let everybody know where they can find you. We'll start with you, John. And where can people find you on social media?
At the Concept JT on Twitter and Instagram.
Scotty.
At SC Ceriti on Twitter and Instagram.
Juicy.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, and the handle is It's Big Juicy with 3 Y's, because with 1 Y was taken.
And you can find me on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at King of Chaos NYC. You are checking this out right now on the Year One Podcast YouTube account. You should be subscribed to that. You should have notifications on. And most importantly of all, you should be subscribed to the podcast itself. Anywhere you can find podcasts, literally anywhere. I have gone through so much stress making sure you can get it accessed anywhere. You can check that out anywhere you get your podcast. And then follow us on social media at Year of the #1 Pod. For myself, for the guest, Juicy, for Scotty and Johnny, we will see you in 2021. And thank you for checking out. We've got Zandig coming in 2021.
Oh, God.
Checking out
That's
next
what
week.
broke this the first time. Don't even.
Yeah, don't break it.
Nobody does it to Sandy.
Catch us in 2021 on Dude, Have You Heard This?